All right. I'm on, yes. Hello, Cleveland. Always wanted to say that from a giant stage, yes. So, let me take a second to welcome you all to Macworld, iWorld 2013. I can't believe I'm even saying 2013. A few of us were a little worried that the Mayans might put a damper on our gathering this year, but we're all here. Bruce Willis hasn't had to shoot any asteroids out of the sky yet, so that's good. If you like how I got the Bruce Willis with the Ashton Kutcher thing going on, yeah, it's very good. Anyway, I have the privilege this afternoon of introducing two gentlemen that are going to blow your mind with music technology. Poach it, scramble it, whatever you want to call it. They are going to knock your socks off and hopefully leave you a little bit inspired to go back home and maybe open up your laptop or grab your iPad and start fiddling around and making your own music. I'm going to show you a little bit behind the curtain so you can see what making music with technology is all about. Let me start with this gentleman to my right, your left. Eyal Amir is a composer, producer, and video maker. He's originally from Tel Aviv, and he's living now in New York, where when we left it was like 13 degrees with 6 inches of snow on the ground, so we're happy to be here. Eyal is very active musically. He's got a bunch of projects going on, my favorite of which is a little project called RNL. Yes, thank you very much. They take a little prog rock, they take a little jazz, classical pop, put it all in a blender, stir it up a little bit, make a nice little musical sauce to dip your bread into. It's really great. If you haven't seen them or heard them, you should check them out. They're on the web. He's also been collaborating with Jordan Rudess, who is, as you may know, the keyboardist from Dream Theater. And they've been doing some stuff musically, but also Eyal's been working with Jordan and his software company, and they make applications for iOS devices for musicians to do what they do. You may have seen some of the apps like MorphWiz or SampleWiz or Geo, and Eyal's going to be using some of those today and telling you a little bit about those. But where I know him from, and probably a lot of you know him from, is his YouTube videos. And I met him 2 years ago at Macworld here, and he showed me a little bit about what he was doing on the web, and I was blown away. And then since then, he's garnered over 22 million hits on YouTube, so that's got to be some serious Google AdSense dollars, I think, right? Something like that? Yes, exactly. That's pretty good. Well. So Eyal will be, I think you're second. You're going to be, David's going to go first, but you'll be talking a little bit later on about what you're doing musically, showing some videos and all that kind of stuff. So Eyal Amir, and let me also introduce a man that's very dear to my heart, and I'll tell you why in a second, but his name is David Mash. And David Mash is one of the few true technology pioneers, starting way back in the 60s and 70s doing music technology. In fact, Rolling Stone called this man the music industry's leading evangelist for the marriage of music and technology. So you know, if Rolling Stone is tracking you down, asking you for your thoughts, as a musician, you're doing something right. Music, technology-wise, he's got too many accolades to even list. He's performed nationally and internationally, been on TV shows all around the world as a music technology authority. My favorite, I have to at least mention one accolade that he's gotten. Back in 1996, he was enlisted to become an Applemaster. Some of you may have heard of that secret society started by Steve Jobs. If you don't know what an Applemaster is, just Google it. You'll be amazed. But they are people who are Mac evangelists who are at the pinnacle of their industry and what they do, and people like, you know, Herbie Hancock, Peter Gabriel, John Cleese, and I think you all meet at Richard Dreyfuss's house every year, right, and play Zork. I think that's what happens. So anyway, he is very actively musically. He's got a brand new album out on iTunes called Decades, a retrospective double album of his over 4 decades of music. And when he's not doing all of that, he finds time to somehow be the vice president for innovation, strategy, and technology at the prestigious Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts, where, by the way, he started the world's first music technology degree, music synthesis, which is what made me want to go to Berklee College of Music. So the reason David is dear to my heart is that he is my boss. And I'm hoping that this short, heartfelt, but factual introduction will get me a little bump in my paycheck next week, yes. And I'm hoping that your strong applause will emphasize how good of a job that I did. Please welcome Eyal Amir and David Mash to the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
I'm on.
Okay. I have slung around my neck this great guitar made by Robert Godin in Montreal, Canada. And I'm not going to play it because I'm just really using it as a prop to hide behind because I'm nervous up here. No, it's not true. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we do, how we do it, why we do it, and how the technology really aids in the inspiration and the creativity process. So we're kind of like the geeks and the geezer. We're kind of like, I'm like the old school analog guy, and Eyal is, he's a digital native. We're going to talk a little bit about, how the tools have changed what we do and how we do it. Most people understand clearly how the technology has changed the consumption of music. You don't go to the record store anymore and thumb through the bins of these big records. You don't even go to the CD store anymore to thumb through the bins for CDs. The technology has really changed the way that music is recorded, produced, distributed, and consumed. But we're really not going to talk about that today. What we're going to talk about this morning is really the creative side. What do you do when you start, and how do you use these tools to express yourself creatively? So we're going to do a little bit of talking, and then a little bit of playing, and then a little bit more talking and demonstration, and we're going to end up with a final performance of Eyal's piece called Deal With It. I'm going to go over here and put up a slide. And hopefully that slide will show up. There it is. So I'm going to let you look at that for a moment. What is that? That's a painting, okay? First thing I'm going to talk about is how different music is from a lot of the other creative arts. And I think it's important to understand that because it will really help you understand why this technology is so important and how it's changed how we think about creating our art. So if you think about a painter, what does a painter do? They stand at their canvas or their paper or whatever they're doing, and they actually interact with their art in the medium of their expression. Just think about that for a minute. When you're painting, what are you doing? You are applying the paint to the canvas. And in real time, you look and you say, oh, I think I need a little more green there, or a little more red. I'm colorblind, so I have no idea what those colors are. But I'm imagining that Wendy, who made this painting, was thinking, oh, I need a little more brown, or whatever. And then, working on the texture, and you can see there's things that she would do in that painting that would have a direct result on the art that you look at. Do you understand what I'm saying? And these arts exist in space. Music does not exist in space. Music only exists in time. And so it's much less physical, in a way, than a painting. So I'm going to take you back 40 years. And this is how I used to make music. So that's a composition I did in 1976. It's called 3 and 4. If you can read it from the distance, it's called 3 and 4 because there's a lot of time signature changes, 3/8, 4/4, 3/4, 7/8, all sorts of things. But it's mostly 3s and 4s. And this is what I would have to do as a composer. I would hear the music in my mind, but I couldn't express it in the medium of my expression. In music, what's the medium of my expression? Sound. That's what I did to compose. Do you hear that sound? No. Only people who can do that are trained musicians who can look at that and interpret what it is. What I was doing when I was composing music like that was I was working in a language of symbols. I would have to translate the sound that I heard in my own inner ears and translate that into a notation, a symbol, a language of symbols that then another musician trained in the black art could actually read and interpret and hopefully turn into sound. This is very, very difficult to do. So many composers, like me, I would have to write this and then copy the parts for the musicians, and get the musicians together, and they would have to rehearse it. And after a long period of time, I might get the opportunity to hear it. So I'm just going to play a second of it, just so you can see. You exactly knew that that's what it sounded like, didn't you? You predicted it. You said, I know what that sounds like. So what's changed now is that now we can create in real time in sound, because the computer or the iOS device, whatever we call these digital tools that we use, can capture what we're doing, play it back for us, and then we can listen to it. We can respond to it. We can say, I want a little more brown, or I want a little more orange, just like the painter can, because we're working then in the medium of our expression. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how that works, and Eyal is going to show you especially how he does what he does. But before we do that, I'm just going to show you a little more mundane piece of it, because we want to play some music to keep you interested in what we're talking about. So I have this guitar, which I mentioned is a fine instrument made by Robert Godin, and attached to it is a new piece of technology, not yet released, although you can go downstairs to the exhibit floor and see it. Should be out in a month or two. This is called the Fishman Triple Play. And what this does is it captures the information from my strings as I'm playing, and it translates it into MIDI data. That's the musical instrument digital interface, control signals, if you will, and then it beams it over there to my computer, wirelessly. And so I'm going to play a sound for you here. Now that's not my guitar sound. That's the Mac making that sound. Those are made from samples. It's a 12-string sound, kind of a big acoustic sound, that's not being generated by this guitar, except for the strings and my fingers on it. It's being beamed over there to the Mac, and actually if you put my screen up for a second, you'll see what it looks like. So you can see on the fingerboard even the notes that I'm playing, because it's basically translating them into a language that the computer can understand and playing it. And then if I turn my guitar on, so now you hear the guitar itself, which I'm also wirelessly sending the audio to my computer, and my computer is also processing the sound and making the sound of amplifiers, and I can add reverb and delay and chorus. You can hear the reverb and the delay there. And all that's being done by the Macintosh. I'm going to do something I forgot to do during the setup and tell it to ignore a bunch of things that I'm going to do. And then we're going to play a piece of music, and I'm going to feature Eyal on it. And Eyal is going to do, this is the old instrument, wood, strings, metal, real physical things. Eyal is going to play the iPad.
Yes.
Why don't you tell him a little bit what you're going to do?
Yes, so I'm going to get into a little bit more of what it does later, but in general, this is a really cool instrument. You'll have to excuse me because my voice is not working properly today. This is an interesting instrument because it's one of the things that fascinate me about the whole, iOS devices, iPads, iPhones, whatever, is that the touch screen can actually, adjust itself to whatever I'm doing. And not a lot of, let's call it music companies, have yet to do something that is responsive to the way, in my opinion, a musician would need to play on. So the cool thing about something like that is it actually resembles a guitar in the way it's structured. So do you see what's happening on screen here? You actually have kind of rows and columns. So, can you hear the sound I'm playing outside? So what's happening is that this is kind of like a guitar string. So I have fourth and I have semitones here. So if I go up here, it's just like I'm going on the different strings of the guitar, but if I'm going sideways, I can go up. So I can actually play just like a guitar. And so on and so forth. Now the cool thing is that because this is, not a physical touch screen, it's not a physical element that I'm playing, I can actually adjust it to the different things that I'm playing. So let's say now I have, let's call it like a guitar with 4 strings. I can actually adjust it like this and have lots of strings. So now if I want to play something like this, I can very easily do that. The instrument has adjusted itself to my needs. Now, if I want to play faster and I want to have, fewer notes on the screen, I can easily do something like that and have just like 6, 7 notes here. So right away, the instrument has lended itself to whatever purpose I'm playing. Also, the sound that I'm making, just like pretty much like what David is doing, is not coming from here. I'm not limited to whatever set of sounds are built on the instrument. This is all MIDI. So in this case, for example, I'm playing this little pad, but then on the next sound, which we're going to play on the piece, I have like a lead sound, which are generated from my computer using Omnisphere in this case, and I'm going to show a little bit more of that later on, different things you can do with this.
So we're going to play a short piece for you. We're going to start by playing something that maybe you recognize. This is an old Beatles song, Lennon and McCartney song called Norwegian Wood. What we're going to play with are some backing tracks, which actually I created by playing each part, one at a time, into the computer, and the computer playing it back. And Eyal is going to show you how we do that in a few minutes. But it's the way that we've changed how we compose and perform, because we can have the computer be kind of like a participant in the process and help us with working in the language of sound. So, Norwegian Wood. Thank you. So, how do we do this? How do we make all this music happen, just the two of us and our little devices? So I'm going to turn it over to Eyal to actually walk you through the process that he does. And he does something that's really interesting, because besides doing the music, he also incorporates video in a very musical and creative way. And I think this is kind of the future of where things are going. So, Eyal.
Yes. So, in general, when people, ask me, what I do, what you do, I would consider myself, more of a composer. But nowadays, the definition of what a musician does is kind of different from what it was, back in the day. Because I think back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, whatever, you'd had, the guy who write the music on a piece of paper, and then you'd have some other guy who's performing it to an orchestra, with an orchestra or a bunch of players or whatever. But then you had someone else doing the recording, and then you had someone else doing the video. You'd have all these different positions of people who are involved in the creation and the presentation of whatever the music is. And I'm trying to go away from that truth, because I feel like the more I make things natural in the process of what I'm doing, what I'm creating, such as recording, video, and all that, I can make a product or a creation or a piece of art that's more coherent, that's closer to what I intended in the first place. So I'm starting to work in, and I'm also adopting the tools for that kind of work that help me, that help connect everything together, that help make, for example, the idea that I'm showing, and also make that idea a visual idea. Because what happened in, let's say, the last decade is that with the development of stuff like Logic and all these other programs for creating music on the computer, is that it became a little bit detached visually. Like you would sit down at home and you would create this loop or a drum loop or whatever it is that we're creating. I'm creating those too, but then we want to take it and show the audience what's happening and how does that, let's say, part of music takes place. You can't, because it was all like a sequence on your computer. And as you'll see in a video that I will show in just a minute, I'm taking things to a different place. I like to say that everything that I'm creating, every loop or every piece of music that I'm creating, also has a visual representation in the music. In this case, in the video I'm going to show you now, it's going to be some sort of recreation of a song that probably most of you know. It's a hit from last year. It's called Moves Like Jagger. But I thought about this song in a completely different way. And, well, I'll just show you and then I'll explain a little bit more about it. Can you play the video?
Just shoot for the stars, if it feels right, then aim for my heart. If you feel like you take me away, make it okay. I swear
Thank you. So, as you can see, this is quite different from the original version of the song. And what happened is that when I'm trying to work on music in general, I'm trying to get as far away from, let's call it, the musical training as possible. Because my discovery is that, I've been, even though I started music at a very late age, and I have been formally trained and, I've learned, theory and harmony and whatever, probably not as much as David, but I've learned all these things, as a musician, you go and, take piano lessons and you go and learn. And then the time comes where you actually, go to, do the music of your own. And I find the instrument as being something very limiting because, you learn, all these phrases that you practice on, and then you come, you get to all these phrases that you practice on, and then, that limits you, that gets in the way, because first of all, you have only a limited amount of technique on whatever instrument you're playing. You want to play something faster, you want to play it differently, and your hands don't really work. You probably, everyone who's ever played an instrument know that. You have, you hear something super fast, and then you go to the piano or guitar, and you start and you learn it, note by note. It takes forever. So I'm trying to come up with things more, let's call it, in my head before I'm actually going to an instrument, and then find the right instrument or the right player on an instrument to do that instead of running into this barrier. So in this case, what I did was, the first thing I did was I tried to imagine the melody in a way that's totally different. So I will play it for you. It's a part of it. So the first thing is that the melody of the original is very straight. It's in 8 notes. Can't really sing pitches right now, but it's very straight. So I try to make it a bit more dotted kind of notes and a bit more interesting rhythmically. So even without any instrument, just me playing the main vocals, you'll see the changes that I've done.
Take me by the tongue and I'll know you. Kiss me till you're drunk and I'll show you all the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger.
So that's kind of different already. Even without adding any instrument, the rhythmic element of that, I think, already kind of draws a different atmosphere, or so-called, even though I didn't change the notes, I just changed the timing. Now with that, I kind of came up with a harmony. I'm going to show it like with the little backing vocals that are on here.
Big, I don't give up.
And it goes like this.
Take me by the tongue and I'll know you. Kiss me till you're drunk and I'll show you all the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger.
So once I lay out like an harmonic rhythmic structure with that, I already have a visualization of what the instruments are going to be, even without I actually play them. So when I came in to do the backing track for this, my concept was I was trying to design, let's call it, the interface that I'm playing, so that I could intuitively kind of bring up the different instruments. So I'm not like the greatest keyboard drummer. I know probably some of you have ever tried. I don't know if some of you have ever tried to play the drums on a keyboard. So it's, unless you really practice it, it's pretty difficult because let's say you want to do something like you want to do something faster on one note, then you have to do kind of do the key like this with one finger. It's pretty hard, you try to bounce. I know I've never had like serious piano training, so for me it's like crazy hard. But on something like that, you can easily do, or split the 2 fingers and get the faster things going. It's also because of the shape of what I designed here. It's easier to do stuff like fills. So I can actually do really fast things, way faster than I could do on a keyboard drums or definitely on real drums. So now it's really hard for me, for example, to play the whole drum part. So what I usually do is I start just by laying the bass drum, snare, and toms, and then I lay out the cymbals on top of them. So I started by doing something like this.
I'm a kid, my ego's. I'm a kid. I'm a kid. I'm a kid, my ego's big, I don't give up.
And it goes like this.
Take me by the tongue and I'll know you. Kiss me till you're drunk and I'll show you on the move like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I don't need to try and control you. Look into my eyes and I'll own you want the move like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger.
Okay, so that was like the first thing I did. And that sounds kind of lame on its own because you don't have the cymbals. So I switched on to a different preset that I made here. And that helped me just to make the cymbals. You can see the layout from here. If you can see the layout of my screen from here, it completely transformed to something else. And the reason I did that was because I'm going to be playing, I wanted to play like some faster stuff on my cymbals. So instead of having one note very closely together, if you've ever played a guitar, you can actually have the same note on two different parts of the screen. So I have the same F sharp here and here. So I can do and get those patterns like this, which is pretty intuitive, and you'll never think about it on a keyboard because you're always limited to this predetermined set of notes. So I'm just going to play the cymbals part of this.
I'm a kid, my ego is big, I don't give up.
And it goes like this.
Take me by the tongue and I'll know you. Kiss me till you're drunk and I'll show you on the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I don't need to try and control you. Look into my eyes and I'll own you on the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger.
So now I kind of have more of a functioning, drum sound, and I did it pretty easily because I simplified the process to just what I needed to get, from the interface or from, the touch screen or whatever. So moving on, I wanted to lay out this bass line. So I set up this screen only with notes that are pretty close to what I want to play. So I can pretty easily do things like this. So now, instead of getting a full range of notes, I have just something small that ranges slightly over an octave. It's pretty close, just having one position on the bass, if you've ever seen an electric bass. So I'm going to lay out that on top of the drum track I already have.
I'm a kid, my ego is big, I don't give up.
And it goes like this.
Take me by the tongue and I'll know you. Kiss me till you're drunk and I'll show you on the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I don't need to try and control you. Look into my eyes and I'll own you on the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger.
Missed a few notes, but that's the general concept. Now, kind of to make this track kind of more full, I'll mute the vocals here, and then I wanted to add like keyboard sounds. Now, all the sounds I made so far, I got with different software from the computer. So the first one was this drum sample that I got from something called BFD. This is the previous one was a bass sample, and this is something. It's like a vintage keys sample that I wanted to put in for the little vintage touch of this. So this is kind of like just to add the harmonic background, but I made the screen in a way where I can play all these like different lines coming. So you'll see me playing like kind of lines that going in counterpoint, some going up, some going down, and I designed the screen so that I will exactly have the visibility of all of them in a way that I can make those lines kind of melt together and create that harmony. So that's how it sounds like. with the whole thing, with the vocals, if I did the whole thing, I added just the only last touch I needed was just a little bit of a lead that answers the vocals, and it only needed one note. So I made this nice little screen here that only had that one note, pretty much super visible. I don't know if you can see it right here. So see, I put this B hugely on the screen so that there's no way I'm going to miss it while I'm playing it. So the final result is kind of like this.
I'm a kid, my ego is big, I don't give up.
And it goes like this.
Take me by the tongue and I'll know you will. Kiss me till you're drunk and I'll show you all the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I don't need to try to control you. Look into my eyes and I'll know you want the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger. I've got the moves like Jagger.
And that's pretty much how I created, the whole arrangement using this.
And so, isn't it much more fun and rewarding for the composer to be working in the medium of sound? He didn't have to write those notes out and then wait for somebody to play them.
Yes.
He just created the instrument that he needed and played it and manipulated it in real time as he was creating it. So working in the medium of sound is what it's all about.
Exactly. And then in addition, as you can see in the video, every time I was recording one of those parts, I was actually filming that. So when you saw the final result, like we've seen earlier, the video was also like a replica of that performance. I didn't need to hire a professional video guy to come here and film me doing as if I was playing, just like MTV was back in the day. You recorded it in a little studio, and then you get the band to the top of the mountain, kind of strumming their guitars. I didn't need any of that because my presentation and my creation of the music were one thing. I could present it to you just as I was performing it. How are we?
Play. We're almost out, so we should play.
Yes. Okay. So before we finish, we'll do just one more thing. I'll just load another preset here. Okay, so the next thing, the last thing pretty much we're going to do today is that I wrote this piece, which I recorded with live musicians in the studio with a drummer, guitar player, and all that. And when we went on to perform it here, because I have the video of that already laid out with my audio, not just the audio, we can actually perform that now with the live musicians who are going to be with us on the video. So, let's see. Okay, can you play that other video? Ready? Sorry, can you stop for a second?
Did you say?
Sorry, technical problem right in the middle of Macworld. It has to happen.
I thought it was something I played.
No.
Or didn't.
Or didn't play. Think of all the notes you could have played. All right, sorry about that. Let's Let's go.
Eyal Amir.
David Mash, thank you.
Deal with it. Thank you very much. Come by the music studio and see all these tools in action. You see the triple play pickup we were showing, and the guitars, and the effects, and the iPad stuff. We'll see you later. Thanks.